everyone. Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. We want to thank our sponsors today. It's Halcyon Yarns. They've been very good to us this year. They've sponsored several times, and we really do appreciate it. If you're looking for yarns or equipment, go check them out. They have a wonderful supply of both. So thank you so much, Halcyon Yarns. We do appreciate it. As always, we'll take questions at the end of the program, the last 15 minutes. So if you would, please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. I can't always see the chat, and I want to make sure I get your questions. So if you would, we like your chat. Please put those in there. They're great to see from everybody else. But if you could put your questions in the Q&A, I'd appreciate it. Today, we have Ellen Silberlicht. Ellen is based in Lititz, Pennsylvania, and she brings a unique blend of humor and insight into her artistic exploration of the world. She's a graduate of the Rochester Institute of Technology School of Crafts. Her formal training was as a sculptor and a sculptor potter, which laid the foundation, as you can see, for her artistic journey. Throughout her life, fiber has played a significant role in her work, with sewing patterns offering a critical understanding of the sculptural form. This skill enabled her to transform a simple slab of clay into an intricate three-dimensional piece. In 2010, Ellen discovered the world of wet felting, a revelation that deepened her creative process. This fusion of wood and clay has since propelled her onto an unending artistic journey, blending the tactile qualities of both mediums to create innovative and thought-provoking pieces. And we're going to see a lot of that today. Hi, Ellen. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. It's exciting to have you here today.
I'm thrilled to be here and
Well,
share.
good.
Yeah.
Look at all those supplies in the background. All right. This
You
is a
can
woman
never
who's
have
working.
many, right?
So what is your favorite tea?
Well, interestingly enough, I'm not a big tea drinker, but I have a friend, the Naked Leaf in Calgary, Canada. And when he started his business, he put artists' artwork on the tea containers, which I love the container. So I got to put my artwork on his tea containers. So this one is a white tea, blueberry pomegranate.
Oh, how wonderful. What a great juxtaposition of the tea and the art. Good for him.
Yeah,
That's great.
love it, love it.
So how did you start in fiber arts?
Well, my family, I guess, has been deep in fiber from going back to my great grandmother. During the Depression, she had a women's boutique in the front of her house. And so she dressed some of the finer people in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which my grandmother learned to sew and do alterations. So both my grandparents from different areas were in the clothing business. And so I learned how to sew from my grandmother. And when I was probably about, I think, 10 years old, my grandmother was embroidering a tablecloth. So she got me into embroidering. Now, I wasn't embroidering with embroidery floss. I was embroidering with these textured yarns. And a basset hound was the symbol or the logo of our clothing store that we had with my grandparents. And so here I was with these huge, thick and thin yarns going through the embroidery hoop and actually going around and getting the embroidery hoop and, embroidered in it. So it was really the back end of things were really very awful. In the end, we cut around the fabric because I didn't always use the hoop. I don't always follow rules. And we tucked in the other fabric and we stitched it onto a pillow. So my grandmother entered her tablecloth into the international, I think it was international, maybe national embroidery guild show in New York City. And I put my pillow in there and I won an honorable mention at 10 years old.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, so I've been sewing all my life, and being very tall at a young age, I could never find anything that was long enough. So I started sewing my clothes. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to hear more about your work with your combination of raku firing, clay, and the felting. So before we get too far into it, I think it's really important if people don't know what raku is, that they learn more. So if you could just give us a brief overview about what is raku and how is it different than other clay?
Sure. So raku is the kind of firing. There is raku clay, which has to be it has to be able to take a shock because here the clay is put into a kiln, brought up to 1800 degrees. At 1800 degrees, the glaze has melted, and I'm wearing a leather everything, leather gloves, leather jacket, face shield, and I will turn the kiln off, reach in, pull it out, and put it on the ground, like on a sand pit, which has some newspaper on it. It immediately flashes into flames at that temperature, and a metal trash can, is turned upside down on top of it, and it's zhuzhed into the sand, cutting off the oxygen. So cutting off the oxygen cuts off the fire, but there's still newspaper that still has not burned all the way. So that begins to smolder. That smoldering is carbon, and that carbon goes into the glaze, making it the magic that it happens with raku, and into the clay body, which you can see here is at the rim of the pot and the very foot at the pot. It turns black. Now, raku does not hold water at all. It has to be a porous clay in order to absorb all that carbon. So that's the magic of raku.
And it has a lovely shimmer to it, right? Or it can.
It can. So this one pictured is very matte, but it depending on if it's a matte glaze or a shiny glaze, but when it shines, it really has an amazing metallic, exquisite finish. Yeah.
Um, this next piece we're going to look at is called Henrietta. I love it that you name everything. It's wonderful. Can you explain how you started combining? You mentioned it earlier, but could you talk more about how you started combining the pottery and the felting? Was it like an aha, oh, this is what I'm going to do? Was it a gradual working toward it?
Well, no. When I started taking a few courses, I did a class with Andrea Graham, and it was the summer of 2015. And that summer, I also made a whole bunch of pots. And at that time, before I started felting, I was doing raku pots with animals attached or animals being part of the pot. Um, and when you're making clay, when you're throwing on the wheel, if you're going to make a lid, you need to make the lid at the time you make the bottom, because as clay dries, it also shrinks. So if you're not using your calipers at the right
Um,
moment to make the jar, make everything fit, you're causing a lot of problems. Well, sometimes we do things that we know will get us aggravated at a later point. But that summer, I did not make the lids right away. So
oh,
I was causing myself problems, but sometimes we do that. So I had a whole bunch of pots. And when I created, and I don't know if you can really see that the pots are very textural. And I was taking a course, I think in about 2010, from Randy Bradnox, who showed me how to make this wonderful texture. To create the texture, you have to uh, expand the pot. So if the pot has maybe an air bubble or a thin spot, as you expand it, because it gets very thin, it can also rip open. A normal potter might say, oh, darn, and throw it back into the pile. But I kind of looked at it and said, maybe, who knows? So I actually fired some of the pieces that had ripped. So after taking Andrea Graham's class, that gave me some ideas of some of the felt coming out of that ripped part. Fast forward to, well, that was probably in July. By August, I have to prepare going back to school because I was teaching school at that point. and I had to put my ideas on the shelf and get ready to go back to school. Oh, a week before school began, I found out I had breast cancer, and
Mhm.
I couldn't go back to, well, I never had any sick days used, so I had the ability to take the whole year off um, because I didn't want to go back to school to have clay might have mold in it, kids might have germs in them. And so I was going through my chemo and radiation, and I did very well. And I was able to go down to my studio and work, although I couldn't work in clay, but I certainly could work in soap and water and felt and wool. So I started putting the pieces, the felt coming out through the cracks. I never consciously thought about having them be the lids or the sculptural tops of the clay, but I had not made the lids. So I had all of these pots that had no lids. So it just
Huh.
it just happened. Yeah.
That's that's so unique. I mean, it's like the good and bad combined, and the
Yep.
good came out of it, and
Yep.
that's an amazing story.
Yeah, I don't know where they just grew. I mean, they just grew like the flowers or whatever. They're my kinds of flowers because I'm certainly not a gardener. So these don't take any kind of water after they're done.
Well, they are so amazing. It's very unique, and I'm excited to talk more about them today. Um, so the one thing that struck me about this, and it's kind of obvious that there's such a juxtaposition to them. And one of the things I heard you talk about, or I read it somewhere, was that you do the ceramics outside, the raku process. Oh, and before I forget,
Yeah,
I encourage you all to go to her website. She has a great video on there that shows you exactly what she just talked you through, and you could see how it's done. And so I encourage you all, not right now, don't leave, but go and watch that video on her website. It all makes perfect sense when you see it. But since you are doing this outdoors, you can't really do it in the heart of winter, right? So you were talking about how in the wintertime you work on the felt, and then in the summer and the better weather, you do the pottery.
right, right.
So most of these pieces that you make, are they done separately? Is part of it like, is a pot in mind when you're doing the felt, or is the felt in mind while you're making the pot?
Well, interestingly, clay and especially raku, I can put the same glaze on a dozen pots, and each time they will never come out the same. So I really don't have any control over the clay, which is something that I really, really enjoy. Um, until they come out and it's like ugh, a dud. But I have to say that most of them come out really very nicely. Some are spectacular,
Mhm.
and some, even if the ones that don't come out what you would expect to be wonderful, there's always something I can do with them. Because there's some that are more subdued. And so I can, I, I take each pot after they're done, and the pot actually gives me the idea of what I'm going to do, the sculptural piece. And then the pot is done, and I can choose the appropriate wool to go with it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I liked about your piece, some of the pieces, is that they're so anthropomorphic. I mean, they have human-like characteristics. Now, that may be projection on my part, but I just think of people sometimes when I see them. And this next one we're going to look at kind of has that, you know, person. I mean, that could look like an arm on each side. And but do you do that intentionally, or is that just me seeing things that aren't there?
Well, I was at the Baltimore American Craft Council show, and a woman from Pittsburgh who has a gallery, who it's now closed, came by and said that she has a glass gallery, that annually she has a teapot show, and she was wondering if I could do a teapot. So this was in February, and I couldn't go home and make one. I said the only way I could do this is if I have a pot already that is ripped open. Luckily, I keep those things. So I did have a pot, and I made it, sent it out to her. And I think the show I think I had a month to make it. And a week before the show opened, she let me know that my teapot was the first thing that sold. I had already sold.
Wow. Good for
So
you.
then after that, I was out at the Cherry Creek show, and someone came into my booth. And then the next day, she rushed in first thing in the morning. She said, I went home, I checked your website. You have a teapot. Do you have any here? And I said, no, I don't, but I can make you one. And actually, this is the one I made her. Um,
Okay.
and she said she's a teapot collector and she doesn't have a teapot like mine. And so I said, well, give me the colors, give me that. She goes, nope, you make anything you want. That was the scariest thing I've ever done.
Why was it scary?
Because I didn't even know like what colors she liked. I mean, I knew nothing about her.
Um,
You want to please the person who's buying it. Yeah, so it was I was a little anxious about making it, but since then she has, she's collected some of my other pieces too. So,
wow, they're amazing. The other thing that's interesting is that the opposites. Now, there's the obvious that the clay is hard and the felt is soft, but there's also it's just a lovely, inviting softness to it is the felt. And but the other thing that's interesting is that you can do and have done a little bit harsher. Maybe harsher is not the right word, but they're pointier. How's that? There's an edge to them like this
hard
one,
edge.
which I love this. I love this. And then of course the combination of the opposites of color, pink with the black. So how do you come up with this? How are those opposites important to your work or
Um, no, they're not important. I just have idea like one thing leads to another. Just one idea goes, leads into the next one. This just reminded me of lipsticks. So that's why I named it maybe this shade. But uh, each pot presents itself a challenge, and it depends, I guess, what kind of mood I'm in.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I have endless ideas, and I guess something has to bubble to the top.
Well, do you keep like a journal with your ideas and then you go back to them, or are they all spontaneous or
They're pretty spontaneous. Like I will have, I'm not a drawer, but I will do like very quick, really awful sketches, just an outline, just to give me an idea. So I remember that idea, because if I go back to it or, it takes time to make each one. So if I have another idea pop in my head, I'll just sketch it out. Yeah, and save it for later.
oh, these are great. This next piece, it's called well, I when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is like reaching out, or when I saw the piece, and then I saw the title of it, which was Come Closer. And I just loved it that this was a piece that engaged me. I mean, I was making decisions about it and ideas and everything. And so, is that intentional that you draw people into the work? You want them to come think of things? Do you think about that when you're designing?
No, not at all. I think well, I mean, everything we do, especially with abstract work, everyone will have their own idea, their own concept, right? When I made this piece, it wasn't anything more than I wanted to play with the advancing of colors
Oh,
to go with the pot, and how would I make those spikes and attach them to the piece and make it kind of look seamlessly, just changing the colors. Yeah.
I could just stare at that forever and just trying to figure out how it works and everything.
Yeah, I don't know if I could make that again. I don't know how I, you look at pieces and it's like, how did I do that? I don't remember how I did that.
Well, your work is as opposites, the hard versus the soft. You've got this solid kind of base to it and the kind of the lighter pieces of the felt. But I thought it was interesting that you said that you basically process the two mediums the same way, that they're very similar. This you roll out the clay and then you roll out the felt.
Right,
Um,
right.
would you talk more about that?
Well, that's what, I find that, well, it's similar, but also very different. So when
Mm,
you work in clay, you can be very spontaneous. You can change your mind, you can mush it differently, all of that. You're just a lot of freedom. When you're making the felt, you really have to plan ahead because you have to know the steps. Yep, you have to know your end result that you think you're going for. Doesn't always, and you have to have an open mind because it doesn't always happen that way. But in order to get where you think you're going, there are certain steps that you have to do in order. So they're opposite in that way, but in the same way is rolling the clay. When I would do the animals, I would roll the clay in the same way that I also would roll the felt, when I'm making
mm.
those rolls. And my hand motions when I'm making this kind of like conical, the same in clay as it is in wool. Yeah.
Would you talk some about this piece?
This reminds me, and it wasn't intentional. I mean, I made it, but then it reminded me of, and I think Dr. Seuss is very inspirational. I love his
I
work.
could see that. I could see that. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was his book, but there was Gertrude McFuzz. And Gertrude McFuzz was a bird that had a lovely little tail. And she was very jealous of the other birds that had these very spectacular, fancy tails. And so she went to a certain bush that would grow her tail. And she ate a berry, and a tail feather popped up, out. And then she was so excited, she ate another berry and ate another berry and another berry until she couldn't fly because her tail was so heavy.
Oh.
This just reminded me, this is plenty for all. I guess there's plenty to share. Not everyone has to have it all. And so this reminds me of that bush. You
Hmm. Um, these next, because you do a variety of things. So these next thing we're going to look at are scarves. I fell in love with these. I just think these are so unique and so, I don't know what the right word is, like interactive. I mean, they literally do wrap their arms around you. I just thought it was wonderful. So how did you come up with this idea?
Well, it goes back to I made a crazy, crazy hat of a head. It was a face. And I do a lot of humor it, and I do a lot of things that make me laugh. I don't know if anybody else laughs, but I laugh. And so I made this big a hat that was a face, and what goes with a face but um you know a scarf. So I made a funny video of my aunt from Florida coming up to visit, and I hope she has she we have to keep her warm, and so I made her this scarf, and that was several years ago. So
Uh-huh.
recently I moved to Lititz in August, and I had family and friends go above and beyond helping me. I mean, way beyond. So a thank you is not enough. A thank you note is not enough. And I thought, what can I do for them?
Oh.
Will show my appreciation. And so I have my hat and the scarf hanging on my wall. And I thought, oh, they need a hug. I need to hug
Ew.
them. And if I make a scarf, they will know they are always loved. So I think everyone can use a hug.
I was just thinking, if you're having a bad day, you just go get your scarf and go sit in it for a little while, and it'll make you feel better.
Exactly.
I love this. It's amazing. Um, you use a lot of symbolism, and it's like the pieces have meaning in them, or there's a personal connection. And then at one time you taught a class, I don't know if you're still teaching it or not, called Meet the Goddess. So what was it about that theme, the goddesses that talk to you? What was your connection to goddesses?
Well, I was a lucky winner of Fiona Duthie, who is a fabulous felter and a fabulous teacher. She proposed kind of a retreat or a felt gathering after she came back from Australia. She had a she has a Facebook group, and she proposed it to the Facebook group. Would this be something that people would be interested in? It wouldn't be a workshop where you're going to learn from Fiona, but we would gather and create together. So I think
Oh,
in the end, 190 people applied to come to this retreat, and only
wow.
24 were chosen. So I
Wow.
was one of them. And that occurred just before the shutdown of COVID. So as COVID unfolded, she put out a challenge to everyone. And the theme was separate yet together. So here I am in my studio, furiously felting, tossing, doing this and all of my ideas, and thinking about what am I going to do for this challenge. And I'm not really good at answering challenges. It has to come from my heart. If I just, if if I try to do something, it just doesn't come out well. It just has to come from within. So as I'm doing all my other felting, while everyone else I think was cleaning their closets, um, I'm thinking about and I'm sketching and come up with several different ideas. And then it happened. Um, the goddess is we are the goddesses, right? And I thought, what wonderful way to keep us together, yet we're all separate individuals. And so I created a series of goddesses, and on each one, I used a felting technique that I had learned from someone else. So it was a series of all the teachers or all the people who had taught me different techniques, but we're all together because this is that was my that was my reasoning for that. So
What a wonderfully unique idea. And you're right, it does bring you all together.
right.
Have you let them know that you've done this?
Well, I didn't like go to each each I would not be able to say what each, well, maybe I could. Maybe I could. But the one, wings allow us to soar, that is drawn with kozo paper first. So it's paper that is felted into the wool. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it's used a permanent marker, and then it's fused into the felt as I felt it. Yeah. So Fiona, once again, the wonderful teacher, she did a class with incorporating the paper. Yeah.
Is it like a Japanese paper?
A kozo is a handmade, very, very thin paper. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
now
So
that would be a workshop I'd be interested in too. That would
yeah,
be just amazing to learn how to do that.
yeah.
You put so much of yourself in your work. Do you ever feel like you might be putting too much or there's a risk of that? I mean, you share a lot through your work.
Uh, I share a lot, period.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I'm an open book. Ask me a question and I have an answer. So I don't really have any, nothing to really hide from anyone. So yeah. So it's,
Oh, wonderful.
like I said before, it has to come from my heart. I I have to it's I can't just make something. If I make something just to make it, it lacks soul. You know?
I
Yeah.
can see that. I could see that.
Yeah.
And I also think your mind must go like a million miles a minute. I can just see there's probably just all kinds of ideas just chucking away in there. And I was so impressed with all the things that you do with felt. You know, you make purses, you do the sculptures, you do the, freestanding sculptures, the sculptures with the pottery. But the other thing is that you do these lovely paintings, these paintings from felt. And when I saw them, I thought about they're like a color theme, and I wondered if this makes even any sense. Is that do you start with the color and you find a theme, or is it the theme chooses the color when you're working on these?
Oh, definitely the theme chooses the colors.
Okay.
Yep. So on the left is the well, maybe it's on your right. I don't know. The ballet. It's a water ballet.
Uh-huh.
Mm,
With the jellyfish?
jellyfish. Yep.
Uh-huh.
And then on the right is fiddle ferns. So
Now, I know somebody's going to ask, how big are these?
they're about 2 foot by 3 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, they're large
Okay.
pieces.
Wow. These are amazing.
Thank you.
So this next one, I wanted to make sure we talked about because I think everybody can relate what you went through. This is another goddess. This is the rainforest goddess. So talk about the journey this piece took, the journey you took with this piece.
Oh, and it was a journey. Well, um, I had this idea, and I think I was going black and gray, and I was doing I can't remember what on one side what I did, but on the other side I was doing X and O. And I created it and it just looked horrible. Just it did not do a thing for me at all.
Uh-huh.
And I finished it, stepped back, and it was ugly. It just was ugly. And so it sat around for a little bit. Um, and then after a while, I decided it needs to be covered up. That's what it needs to be. So it had a lot of what I call rocks, and I love rocks. So on the shoulder, you can see the gray, and there's a few rocks there. And then underneath, what that to me is a waterfall with rocks in the water. But underneath there are locks. So like a shaggy locks. So I don't remember right now what I was trying to accomplish, but I did not accomplish it at all. So I just started looking at it and needed to cover these things up. And this is what happened. The rainforest.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's lots of things. And well, I pared it down. I pared it down to 2 bins. But many times you'll make something and it's not going to reach the idea that you were creating it for, but it still exists. So I put it in my bin, and at another time, with other ideas, if I have an idea or I don't have an idea, I can go to the bin and go through my trash and see what comes up and see what might inspire me, or maybe I can turn something into something else or use it as something else. So there's always,
I I
yeah.
think we're all just feeling so good about your work is amazing. You're so talented at what you do. And it's always good to hear someone who's said, "Oh, I've made something awful." One, it's like, "Oh, I'm not the only one who makes something really bad." But I
Oh,
love it that you
I do it
stayed
all.
with it.
I do it all the time.
But you stayed with it. You went to the next step. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm terrible. I'm gonna throw this away." It was like you stayed with it. So I just think that's very inspirational
Oh,
for all of us who struggle along. So thank you for sharing that.
no problem.
What I want to do is you have a piece there with you, and I think it's Mardi Gras, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. Can you show us? I think people will appreciate the size.
Yes, yes. Because when you see it on my website,
Okay, we're going to show what it looks like. There we go.
yes.
And then we're going to see it in real life. Oh,
So
it's huge.
yeah, they are large. They're about, at least 2 feet, if not larger. Depending on what it is that I'm making. So
Wow.
large. And they're separate. So
Oh, really?
yep.
Well, everybody's asking about that. So we'll talk about that in the questions. They all want to know how you put that together.
Yeah. That's
What
how.
is the largest you've ever made?
Um, that floral piece, the Henrietta,
Uh-huh.
that was the largest one. That was about 3 feet tall. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Mandy. I know I'm driving her crazy asking her to change all these screens. She's so good at what she does. Um, so here's Henrietta. So this is 3 feet.
3 feet
Okay.
tall. Yep. And I named
Wow.
her Henrietta because once I finished the piece, I stepped back and there was the flower from Little Shop of Horrors. It was never,
Eat me.
meant, but that's what it said to me. So I couldn't name it what I can't even remember the name of it now. But so I had to name it something else. So she became Henrietta.
Oh, they're like little family members for you, aren't they?
They are.
They
They are.
are. I love that. So, I can't wait to hear this. What's next for you?
Well, I always like to work in different materials. Show me something and I will try it. And I have always dabbled in polymer clay.
Ah,
And I think one thing I like about polymer clay is its immediacy, uh,
mm-hmm.
because uh, earth clay has to go through several steps and drying and all of that, where polymer clay gives you the color immediately, gives you design options immediately, and you put it in a regular oven to bake. So I'm thinking my flower or floral or inspired pieces, maybe the centers could be more intricately done with polymer clay and felt, continue that. So we'll see what happens.
I
Well,
used to I used to teach people how to make jewelry with polymer clay, and it was just real basic, simple beads, that kind of thing. But it's the same thing. And the other thing I loved about it, it was so success oriented. It was, I mean, you could mess it up, but for the most part, things turned out beautifully.
right,
Not that
right.
you need that, but
Well, and I also just recently, and I think at the beginning of November, there's a polymer clay retreat here in Lancaster. So it was just perfect. So it was like 4 days of just great fun learning and sharing, and what could be better?
it was meant to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see what you come up with. Now, will you work smaller, do you think, with polymer clay?
Everybody has a size they're comfortable with.
Uh-huh.
Small is not my size. So I'm thinking that the polymer clay will be just an element
Oh,
that's incorporated with the felt, like the center of the flower. Possibly that's what I'm that's my thought process right now.
oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see these. This is great. Oh,
One thing before we go on, I want to share because we have talked about, unsuccessful pieces and all of that, and, being, even being a beginner or whatever. Um, I grew up in a very rural town. So I can say we didn't have art. No one ever walked into an art gallery, anything. I was lucky to have maybe a pound of clay a year in art class. Um, but from a very early age, I knew I wanted to be a potter. So after my junior year, my mother suggested before I commit 4 years to going to college for pottery. Maybe I should try it out. So I went to Rhode Island School of Design for a 5-week summer course.
Oh,
Came back with the ugliest, heaviest, most outrageously awful pots. I spread them out on the dining room table for show and tell and joyfully said, "Yep, this is what I want to do." Ending up going to RIT, I came back with my first batch of pots, spread them out on the dining room table. And my mother told me, she said, when you came back from RISD and said, "Yes, this is what you want to do," she cried because they were so terrible. But she could only tell me that now because I had improved so much.
bless her heart. Oh my
I
God.
had no idea that well, I always knew that I had 150% of my support, from my parents, but I was really a beginner. So it takes passion for sure, passion and time to work and get where you want to go. Um, so you can do it. uh, from ugly, ugly pots, so
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's
exactly.
a great story. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I never knew I didn't have her support.
Oh, poor thing. Oh,
And I don't have children, but I had hundreds of children as a teacher, and I just cannot imagine keeping my mouth shut when I would see someone that I did not believe that they would be able to be successful. I would certainly um, suggest another alternative or a backup plan or something. So wow, yeah,
she was a smart lady.
yeah,
Smart
she's
lady.
yeah,
Oh,
amazing. Yep.
well, we have tons of questions. So let's head over that way.
All right.
And the first thing we have to do, this will take care of about 12 questions, I think, right now.
Uh-huh.
Everybody wants to know about your vest.
Oh, oh. So this is commercial silk. So it's
Ooh.
white with black dots, and this is all hand painted silk. So I hand painted the silk and then Nuno felted it together and then dyed it with the green. And the pot is not large enough, so which I think gives it a little interest. So it's not one solid color green. It,
Mhm.
you know, it gets accepted differently because of the small space it's being dyed in.
Now, tell me again what the dots are. Are they felt or dyed?
No, it's a fabric. So it's just
Oh,
a silk commercial silk fabric. So it's
uh-huh.
white with black dots. Yep.
There we go.
Yep.
Well, that took care of about seven
I have
questions, I think, right
not
here.
warm because my studio's in the basement and it's chilly, little chilly.
I bet.
And I can absolutely, I mean, that's absolutely feel, I mean, this is the perfect thing to do in the wintertime is to felt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is from Beth Wrench, and she said your raku usually has a very earthy hues. How did you get your beautiful pieces so much color?
It's all the magic of the glaze. Well, it's the whole process. Uh,
Uh-huh.
when you pull it out, uh, it's a quick process. So
Mm.
please watch my video. Um, you pull it out, you put it in it flashes into flames, and you have to put the fire out. If you let it continue to burn, what will happen at first, what will happen is it won't be in a reduction atmosphere. So if
Mm.
there's air to it, so that's why
Right.
it's burning, and that atmosphere is going to not give you the metallics. So it has to be a reduction atmosphere. So you have to starve that the trash can that's on top of the the pot.
Uh-huh.
That's an atmosphere. And
Uh-huh.
when it's starved of oxygen and the paper is smoldering, that's a reduction. That's a reduced atmosphere. And that it also depends on the size of the can and the size of the piece.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you have a a small piece and this large trash can on top, there's a lot of reduction that has to happen to get absorbed into the pot. If it's a small can and a small piece, then you've got a smaller atmosphere to create the magic.
Where did you learn raku? In college?
In college, and then later on, well, in college you have access to so many different
Yeah.
things. And so many times potters go to college and they use the gas-fired kilns, which you can get just such earthiness in the glazes, and then you don't have a gas-fired kiln, and maybe you can get your hands on an electric kiln, which has a whole different glaze feel. Now glazes in electric kilns are much more earthy and interesting,
Oh,
but
really?
back in the day, you didn't really have much. And just like raku, I rakued at school, but never again until I was going to the Wayne Art Center in the Philadelphia area for a class, because as a teacher, you have to keep up with your credits. So I had to take more art classes in the summertime. It was just terrible.
It was such sacrifices you have made.
Which, it makes me amazed at why are these math teachers going and loving their summer courses? That's beyond me. But I was taking a class, and all of a sudden, I signed up for a class, and I can't remember what it was. It was pottery, but I'm not sure exactly what the theme was going to be. And I called to ask how much, what do we need to bring, because I was coming a distance. And they said, oh, we'll have everything you need, all the clay you need. And I think that was 2008 probably, because that's when things got a little dicey in our world. And all of a sudden they turned it into a raku class. And I was like, oh, well, fine. I love raku. And we got 25 pounds of clay. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can eat that for breakfast. What am I going to do all week? So, but that's where raku got rekindled. And I went back to our school, and one of our students had done as a senior project, she made a raku kiln. It didn't work. And so she gave it to the school because she wasn't using it at all. It didn't work quite well, but I kind of worked on it and got it to work, do its thing. And then that's when I went out to Lake Tahoe to take a class with Randy Bradnox when I learned how to do the texture. And he made kilns. So I ordered a kiln from him because I love raku. I love the magic. I love the
Uh-huh.
spontaneity. Yeah. So that's got me back into, another accident that was not planned for raku. So
I took a pottery class in college and we did a raku weekend. And of all the things that happened to you in the 4 years you're there, that's one of the things that stood out in my mind. I can tell you
yeah,
everything about that day and what we did. And you're right, it's just like magic. It's like,
yes,
wow. So I can understand you're wanting to pursue that.
yeah.
Um, Now we have to talk about, everybody's asking about this too. Now you showed how you put the lid on top of the pot. How
Mhm.
are you connecting it to other places like on the side, you connected
Uh,
it or?
well, it's on the where it opens up,
Right.
where the clay has broken open. Most of the time, I can just wedge it in there. Some
Okay.
Sometimes I'll glue it from the inside.
Okay. But
But
most of them are actually lids,
all
right?
the ones on, yeah, all the ones
Okay.
coming from the top are lids. Yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, oh, this is a good question. Thank you, Gail Valance. Um, have you ever made a pot out of felt?
I have. I actually, when I was making my raku pots with the animals on them, I so um I was introduced to felt um way back, I think in like the 1980s. I went to West Virginia and I took a jewelry felting class for a weekend
Oh,
jewelry felting class with Lori White, who now is out in Washington State. So I learned the principles of felting two pieces, keeping some dry, and then joining them together. It was a wonderful class. I loved it. I came home with the most avant-garde, rings and bracelets and necklaces, put them in the closet, had a wonderful time. I had no idea where to buy wool. I had no idea how to do anything if I even found wool. So years later, I was on the internet, when they invented the internet. And I came across a website that had a list of all of these felters all over the world. So, and it was in Helvetica because this was the beginning of everything. And so I went through every person, and if they had a website, I'd click on it and look them up. Well, I finally found Pam McGregor out in Ohio that she had, I think she calls it Tarvey Studios. Um, she has students come to her studio and felt. So a friend of mine and I went out there and I took one of my pots and I told Pam I want to duplicate my pot. And I think it had a frog on it. So she started with us making a vessel. So I still have that vessel. It's ugly and it's really not finished because I'm not happy with it. But I made the vessel and she said, instead of trying to do that, let me show you different techniques. So we did make a vessel. Um, but then we started with different techniques. So we ended up having like a little fabric book, felted book of, some samples of different ways to go, different techniques. So
oh, wow.
I did make a vessel.
Um, how much of an armature do you use under the shaped felt, especially like the stems and that kind of thing? That
Well,
was from Andrea. Thank you, Andrea.
I do use wire, like floral wire.
Uh-huh.
And then I use floral tape on if I can't get floral wire with the tape on it. I make sure I put the tape on it
Hmm.
because if it's just wire, the wool just slides right off.
Right, right.
Then on some other pieces, when it gets very large, I'll use 14 gauge galvanized wire. And then I'll use core wool depending on the shape. And the shape is, conical. So it's a round ball and, that will fit in the neck of the pot and then taper down. So that's a lot of my beginnings and a lot of my inspiration, like a spiral.
Do you hand build your clay or throw it?
It is thrown, and I believe on my video, it might have the beginnings also. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But the process
Mm.
is I throw a cylinder and then I skim off all the scum or the slip on the outside. I put sodium silicate on the outside and with a heat gun, I dry the outside to the touch. Then once it's dry, it's like a dry skin, and only from the inside I'll push out and push out. And
Oh,
so
right, right.
inside is still wet, outside is dry, and it cracks as it expands. So
That is in the video now that you said that. It is. I watched that. Yeah. Thank you, Patricia. That was a great question. Um, yeah, okay, you answer that one. Do you do any needle felting?
uh, I do not call myself a needle felter.
Okay.
I have done some on some of the pieces, very few pieces, but just recently I started needle felting faces in teacups.
Oh,
So they're real characters. So at what at we have I'm part of the Northeast Felters Guild, and we do a retreat in April. And one of our presenters was showing us how to make a needle felted face. And you can choose to do the workshops or not. And of course, I wanted to learn, but what am I going to do with a needle felted face? So I happened to have a pot, just a short, squat pot. And I thought, ooh, if I take this pot and I make the face, I can put the face inside the pot and it will be my pin cushion. So I've had this pin cushion for years and I use it as a pin cushion. And you're right, my mind goes everywhere. And I just started making these characters. I call them my family. And I start making these heads, and I have no idea where they're going to go. But I start with the nose, and from there they take off and they turn into characters. And then I glue them into the teapot, the teacup, and then I glued the teacup onto the saucer and hang it on the wall because my friends are saying no one's going to put pins in those faces.
good point. Hadn't thought of that. Hadn't thought of that. Oh my gosh. Well, we need to stop, but I have to read this last one. This is from Catherine Johnston. And she said, I would love to take Ellen and Patty Barker, because Patty was just on a couple of weeks ago, out to lunch and just listen to them toss around ideas. Come to Dallas, Georgia. There's a winery down the road. So you have a freestanding offer right here, Catherine.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much. Y'all, I'm sorry I couldn't get to all your questions, but I would encourage you to, can they contact you through your website?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, go to the website and you all go see that video. It explains so much. There's a lot of how-to questions about, what kind of yarn you use and wool and everything. So go to the website. Ellen, you were wonderful today. Thank you so much for being on the show. I do appreciate it. We've got your website up here right now. I encourage you all go. There's so much more information. And we do appreciate you being on here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We want to thank our sponsor today, Halcyon. Again, if you're looking for, if you're looking for merchandise, if you're looking for supplies, you can get them at Halcyon. So thank you, Halcyon, for being our sponsor today. We do appreciate it. Don't worry about it, Mandy. Let's just keep going. But other thing we want to talk about is, there we go, Halcyon Yarns. Thank you, Halcyon. We appreciate it. Great store in the Northeast. If you're up that way, check in on them. And also, if you are interested in felting, I believe they have wool. I believe they have felting material. But they have everything else if they don't have that. Thank you so much, Halcyon. We do appreciate it. Now, the other slide that we were looking at, if you haven't heard about this yet, this is so unique. There's an organization, a company called Redbubble, and you can go on there and order cups and the notebooks and the bags and everything, and they'll put our logo and all of our information on it. So if you want a mug for your Textiles and Tea watching, you can get one from them. Or if you want a bag, or if you want a notebook. And I love these notebooks. I want to get one before I go to Convergence so I can put all of my notes from the conference in there. So it's a great idea. We get a little bit of money from it, but more importantly, you all get this great merchandise that we can't offer. And we're coming up on the holidays. What a great gift for a friend of yours. Or if you want to get something, like I said, and take it to Convergence, you'll have your notebook there. So check it out. Makes great gifts, and it's just fun. So check that out. It's on our website. You can go on there and you can see where the merchandise is. We want to thank everybody for their donations and their memberships. Those are the things that keep us going. It helps us support Textiles and Tea, Spinning and Weaving Week. All the programming that we offer is supported through the donations and your membership. And we do appreciate that. It gives us the opportunity to think, what's next? What do our members want or need next? And that's what we want to do. So if you would like to join or donate, or both, you can do it at weavespindye.org. And thank you to everyone who's donated. You know what? And again, holidays are coming up. Might want to give somebody a membership for a present this year. Just saying. So thank you so much. If you've missed any episodes today, I mean, any episodes over time, you can go back and watch them. If you want to watch today again, wouldn't that be fun? You can go back and do that, and you can do it on Facebook. It's on there for 30 days. If you want to watch something that's past 30 days, you can see it on YouTube. If you like watching on YouTube, I would encourage you to subscribe. Then you'll get a notice saying when a new episode's been uploaded. So YouTube and Facebook. Next week, we have Eugene Vigil, another tapestry weaver, and beautiful work. You're going to be excited to see his work. Thank you all so much for being here today. Today was fun. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.